Hello. Hi. And hello. It's the Character Creation Cast with the Character Creation Crew. I'm Trevor.
I am Michael.
We're here today to make some characters. We rolled up the character at the end of the last episode, or maybe in like a little short bit at the end of the last episode. Michael, what was the character that the race and the class of the character that we have challenged ourselves with this time?
For this episode, we're going to be making a Yuan Ti druid.
Yuan Ti druid. We really kind of put ourselves, really kind of challenging ourselves with this one, I think.
Certainly.
At least this one was weird for me.
Yeah, I've never actually played a Yuan Ti in really any game. I've almost solely ever seen them used, for bad guys.
Yeah, just as I think I've only encountered them one time in the game, and you were exactly right. They were the nameless NPC villains that were dragging my new character through the desert for the party to encounter.
Right, yeah, the Yuan Ti are like a de facto bad guy race, almost right up there with goblins.
So just, I guess, it's worth kind of looking at it. For anyone who doesn't have a clue what a Yuan Ti is, what's going on there?
The Yuan Ti are snake people, to put it as simply as it could be. Yuan Ti were originally humans who transformed themselves into serpent folk through ancient rituals. Most Yuan Ti were corrupted into monsters by those rites, but some instead became a new people who mixed characteristics of humans and snakes together. They are blessed with resistance to magic and poisonous effects by the ritual that created them. Each of these Yuan Ti manifest their serpentine heritage in a variety of ways: forked tongue, snake eyes, flat Voldemort-looking nose, other ophidian kind of characteristics. However Yuan Ti look, they have the power to pursue great good or great evil, and they almost always shoot for greatness.
Interesting. What was that descriptor that you used there? Ophidian?
Ophidians.
Is that just sort of for snake-like things?
I think it's a
Ophidians.
Ophidian is really just a fancy way of saying reptile.
Oh, I see. Well, that's a cool word. That's a really cool word. One of those that you could I don't know, I could see somebody, that's the name of a gang or the name of an old ancient group, they're the Ophidians.
Right, admittedly, some of this stuff has been made so that, we could be ready for what we're doing today, but if I had read that word earlier, I think that might have been a name for someone, and it might be a name for someone still.
Yeah, you're so right. Speaking of which, let's get into the meat and potatoes, they say. We're going to roll a d6 to see who gets to share their character first. So I think we'll do me 1, 2, 3, you 4, 5, 6. Does that sound fair?
It sounds like a plan.
All right, here it goes. Rolling. We got a 1. So I will be going first. And let me share with you the tale of Trait. So Trait is my Yuan Ti druid. She is a little snake girl, which, actually you saying that descriptor kind of changed the mental image in my head. I had seen her more having the Ophidian qualities. But then you saying that it can manifest in a variety of different ways kind of does change the picture of her being more I guess humanoid on the top, but then having, the big snake tail. Kind of more, I guess, like a Naga from the Warcraft sort of area. So Trait is a gal that comes from a really, really small society, one that's maybe not developed in the normal way they don't like habitate cities and sort of things like that. They just sort of have their own little groups, and from very early on it was noticed that she had this very strong connection to nature and to the earth, and so she was separated from her family and sent to a fellow Yuan-Ti named View. And View is this ancient, just decrepit old snake man who is also a druid, and sort of from the very, very beginnings, early on, begins to teach Trait sort of like the ways of the world. So she grows up like incredibly isolated, like only interacting with this one guy, but she does have this real talent for scrounging and gathering and figuring out how to like make these things into, is it holistic? Is that the word I'm looking for? Or is it like kind of like homebrew magic? Not magic, homebrew like healing and things?
Yeah, magic, yeah. Holistic. I think holistic is probably like a good description for it, and in D&D that actually carries weight.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So then this kind of manifests into the two personality traits that we had come along with the character, which were unreliable and hypochondriac. So I've decided to let that manifest through Trait being she doesn't mind to dig under a rock, but like any other mammal or living creature, she's not about that. There's something really funny about a druid who can't stand animals to me. And I think that may have been like the fundamental crux for the character was that joke maybe. But her then, she grows up with this man, eventually becomes, an adult, or enough to be, I guess, to equate as an adult, as a Yuan-Ti. And eventually, as they go through their kind of lives together, he begins to crystallize in a way. He like becomes a tree in a sort of sense. And so then after their people eventually kind of reach out and they see what has happened to View, they wonder what has happened, why did this happen, and she didn't feel like she could explain it because she also didn't know what was going on. And so out of fear of what they may judge her for, or if she may have been the cause of something like this happening, or is this the same thing of gonna be my fate, she decides to take off and to leave. And so that would be her motivation to be with the party, but then once again, her being unreliable and being a hypochondriac, she's not about physically interacting with the party, and then also if there is a task that requires her to do so, she may not be able to perform whenever the task comes up to hand.
I see almost like the hesitance of it is from being a hypochondriac, just the pure hesitance of like getting your hands quote unquote dirty.
Exactly, and it's because that definition of dirty can be vastly different things depending on who it is that's doing the touching.
Well, then, I actually have a handful of questions, if you wouldn't mind me fielding them at you about Trait.
Hit me.
So you made like a Yuan-Ti druid. Really, what were your first thoughts, I guess, when putting together a Yuan-Ti druid?
This one took me a long time to actually get to kind of put the pieces together into a character. So I think that it was the like initial real thing was, like I said earlier, maybe that kind of tongue-in-cheek joke of the druid who doesn't like other animals, and kind of exploring another side of druidity. But then also, I guess there's really just that mental image of where Trait will call home, which would be just like the like a swamp I'm seeing but also like rainforesty jungle that's got, vines and tree roots that are so incredibly twisting and intertwined, that if you hadn't originated from this place, there's absolutely no way that you would be able to navigate it. So like that mental image of like who would come from a place like this also, I think, kind of fueled that.
Man, I actually like that a lot. You rarely ever hear of someone who kind of like makes their character based off of their negative traits rather than traits. Yeah, rarely ever do you hear someone who's kind of like inspiration, and like the stone that they leaped off of to begin with is like their negative qualities. Usually people try and bring what they're good to the forefront, or kind of what they're going to be about, like maybe in game or on like the battlefield. They try and bring that to the forefront. I really like that the negative quality is actually kind of the driving factor in trait and who she is.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. It was a lot. It's whenever we roll for the personality traits on the table, it's a lot more like rewarding, I guess, for me whenever we get something that is like a more negative trait, which I guess now that I kind of think about it, it seems like a lot of them kind of lean more negative. So maybe it is sort of just inherently a way to like un-Mary Sue everyone's character.
Hey man, I like it, and honestly, like I think you took what most people would find the least fun part about their character and really like make it your own and like make it valuable. So like I think that is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it could be one of those things that were like, her not being able or not being willing to touch things could lead to a lot of like really funny moments in character.
Yes.
While also leading to potentially like some really like emotional and like poignant moments of like, can she overcome this?
I got another one then. With trait, what role, I guess, do you see yourself in, like inside of a party? Like, what role do you see yourself in? What is the scene that like pops into your mind when she is like there with the party? Like, where is she standing? What is she like? What is going on when you think of trait for the first time, like in a party?
Yeah, they get the Wanti end up getting a lot of like magic resistance and like serpentine spellcasting, like these built-in sort of things, and what's another? I think there's like one thing called like natural recovery, which like gives you like certain spell slots back or whatever, and like also like bonus cantrips. So it really felt like it was being pushed to being the caster and potentially being really leading into like the healing druid.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I made sure to like pump up the wisdom, and then also I thought that's another kind of lean into that hook of do I trust this person, I guess, enough to touch their shoulder to cast cure wounds.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Like, are you even willing to touch another party member? That is like an obstacle that you kind of have to overcome.
And then I just see her also kind of being like having, nature-y, the underside of rocks, like dirt and moistness and that kind of like focused sort of spells.
All right, so we kind of touched on a little bit of this earlier, but I guess kind of want to ask you just to encapsulate the question. Is this character meant for like a long-term game? Is it more of maybe like a short campaign where they have like one quote-unquote season? Really, like what is Trait's like end goal or the story that you would want to tell with her?
Interesting. I could see it kind of being either way. I could see her being fun as like this is like just a character for a one shot where you just play one time and just sort of experiment playing this like monstrous race and really doing something wacky. However, I think that there could be something really rewarding about seeing how she has the potential to grow and to culminate into like herself as a character, and then like also kind of exploring the, you know, who am I, who was View, and what happened to him, and is that going to happen to me? And then that could be some cool motivation of like, I've only got a short amount of time, you know, I'm gonna turn into a tree myself, because that's just what happens to druids that are so powerful in our certain type of, you know, sect or whatever. And then there's like this fight against time, or something like that. So I think that would kind of also fuel, like, you know, why she's there. The end goal of the story is like, why is this happening to me? Is this my fate? Is there a way to combat this? You know, are there alternatives? And you know, maybe there's that beautiful moment where she returns to the jungle and accepts her fate and becomes the, you know, that big tree from Pocahontas that has like the face and like loves the forest and takes care of everything. So yeah, that would be it. So how about you, my friend? What have you got for us?
Oh my goodness gracious, am I glad that you asked. When I got or I guess when I say I got the call, no. When I got the call. When I got the call. When we rolled up Yuan-Ti, I was a little bit almost dumbfounded because, you know, again, never did Yuan-Ti, not sure where to go with that. But then when we also hit Druid, I immediately latched onto the idea of a snake charmer. I mean, why not, right? Why not? Like, it's a werewolf that loves dogs. Why not? That sounds hilarious.
That's a fun way to put it.
And it started out kind of, you know, lighthearted and a little bit, you know, goofy, silly, funny. But then, like, I guess, like, the more that I started kind of, like, looking into it and maybe, like, making the character herself, it just maybe, I guess, took, like, a little bit more of a darker turn to it. But the character that I made, her name is Septra of Meru. Septra is the high priest the high priestess at a temple. I'm not sure where, but I do know the name is Meru. Yeah, she's like the high priestess. And in my head, I like to think that she is maybe even the only priestess left.
I see. Born and brewed in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then, you kind of said this earlier, but like the snake charmer aspect of it, was that kind of that initial spark, that initial light bulb that went off when creating this character?
It really was. Like, I wanted to lean into like really being connected with snakes, being connected with animals, the more bestial aspects of being a Yuan-Ti. Like, I wanted Septra as a character to really feel like it embodied the concept of like maybe coming up against a snake, an intelligent snake, because I mean, honestly, who isn't at least a little bit off-put by reptiles of that size?
That's a good point. And it does show that you know, you went for the druid that doesn't transform herself, but rather commands her swarm, I suppose.
Exactly. I wanted her to really like reach into using like a druid's, you know, animal communications ability. And then like Yuan-Ti, they're just primed for being able to interact even further with animals. Like it really just felt like once I kind of dove into this, like the layers of this cake just kept getting taller and taller.
Yeah, and that's just one of those cool, you know, aspects. There's like this kind of trifecta, I guess, of druids, where there's the caster, there's the commander, and then there's the transformer, I guess you could kind of say. And like, you know, we've got two of the trifecta represented.
Oh, you're right. My goodness, you're right.
So then, with your druid, what role do you see Septra taking? Like, where do you see them actually, like, how do you see them interacting with the party?
Like just pretty recently, me and my wife had rewatched The Mummy. Like the 25th anniversary came out like a little bit earlier this year, and so I really wanted to make a character that hit that desert, ancient Egypt vibe. And when we got the hypochondriac negative quality, I thought to myself, well, that kind of coincides perfectly with the bleached sands of the desert. It is just more clean out there because bacteria can't really live. There's nothing to survive off of. The idea of being out in the hot, dry, desolate desert, the sands of, like the sands of Arabia, kind of, it's clean. It's clean out there.
That's fascinating. I didn't think about that at all. Wow, that's really interesting.
But yeah, I absolutely see Septra stalking like maybe some like old catacombs, ancient tombs and temples. In my head, she is absolutely an evil character. She certainly is going to be very territorial, very quick to anger, and most likely a villain in whatever story that she's in.
I see. So you see this, like, you see her spot in the game as being a villain in the game. You see her as like someone that the party's going to have to potentially have an interaction with.
I think that I accidentally ended up making an NPC.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a first. So then what kind of story do you think you want to tell with Septra? Is it one that she shows up early on in the game and is a early game hurdle that the party kind of has to band together to surmount this terrifying snake charmer woman? Or do you see this being a reoccurring villain that is constantly sending out snakes to watch the party, and so every time they see a snake they're like chopping heads off because they don't trust nobody?
I see Septra as likely just a single arc kind of character. For how long I couldn't say, but I would see Septra as maybe being like the first villain, like the first bad guy, the first maybe kind of big bad that a very early level party would run into is Septra. She has eyes everywhere. She is almost impossible to really be able to pin down, but like poses this looming threat maybe off in the distance. In my headcanon, I would imagine that maybe the temple that she guards so rigorously is, of course, chock full of treasure.
Certainly. Has to be.
Right. And so really, like, she seems like maybe the first big hurdle that a very early level party would have to overcome.
Nice, yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. And they say the party starts off in the desert, and their first kind of initiation sort of thing is to go out to these ruins and to bring back artifacts. And every time that they go out to these different ruins, there's always the one thing that is consistent is there's always snakes. And it's like as the party is gathering information, she is also gathering information in return.
Man, I love that mental image. I do. I really, really love that mental image of as maybe like a party is kind of setting up a camp, and they are very tentatively starting to poke around and check these ruins that maybe they've been tasked with getting like some ancient artifact or idol out of. That while they are poking around in the sands and looking at the entrances to these ruins, there are snakes just inches below the surface, hidden underneath the sand as well, that are watching them and feeding the info back to Septra, who is undoubtedly waiting inside for her chance to be able to strike.
Certainly. And then like I could see these things sort of escalate, where the first encounter it's just the snakes, and then the second encounter there's like maybe more of them, and then the third encounter it's the snakes have I've got this really cool mental image of the snakes like all wrenched together in like the form of a man's body, but it's all just this writhing snake mass.
Oh, I love it. Like a rat king, but with snakes.
Yeah, they're having to kill like these Snake King, walking things, as then the next time they actually face Septra herself, whenever they reach the antechamber at the bottom of the temple to Maru.
Man, layers and layers on that. I love that. I love what you just now pitched.
Yeah, and like you said, with her being, she's the first arc villain, so you have to have, these cool sort of escalations, these stepping stones as it gets worse and worse as you get deeper and deeper. Yeah, I think that would be a really cool and really fun, first act villain for a party. That's it's entirely centered on this area, because it's actually the party, they're the bad guys because they're the ones encroaching on her territory. But that's a whole other thing to get
who's
into.
really the villain here?
How cool! Yeah, and I think that's interesting that we went in two separate directions there of me making someone who would just join the party and who would be a healer and be benevolent and trying to help, and yours went straight to oh no, this is someone who's going to whip the party's ass.
Yeah.
It is also interesting to me that we both went with a female character.
Yeah, entirely unprovoked or unsuggested. Both of us just kind of weird mind-linked thought to ourselves, Yuan-Ti Druid absolutely needs to be a female character.
That's a woman. There's something, I think, snake. There's a snake association with my brain. Snake goes to female, I guess.
It must be the curves.
Hey.
Watch your step. Come on, Ellen, let's turn back. This is getting ridiculous. How many more of these damn snakes are there?
They're just defending their home, Bryn. Show some respect.
Easy for you to say, Scales. They're your kid, after all.
Locere cum animalimus.
Thanks, Trade, I guess. Here we go again. Shut up, Bryn. Something's not right here.
Welcome, intruders. You have trespassed on sacred ground.
Who are you?
I am Septra of Maru, guardian of these ruins. And you, traitor to your kind, will be the first to die.
Not like this! No!
And we've returned. Thank you for coming back and joining us. We're here on Roll Your Stats, talking about our Yuan-Ti druids. Michael, wait. You're the one who's supposed to ask me the questions. So, Michael, ask me the questions.
All right. We've taken a bit of a break, and I have a few more questions that I might want to pester you. I might want to, pick your brain about. We kind of glossed over a little bit of it in the first half, and so getting into the nitty-gritty of who these characters are, man, what what subclass is trait? Like, what subclass did you choose for trait?
I chose to go with the Circle of the Land. So with druids, you choose a different druidic circle that you have aligned yourself with, and that comes along with, I guess, different stuff all the way through your lifespan as a druid. So I've gone with the Circle of the Land. With Circle of the Land, it is the Circle of the Land is made up of mystics and sages who safeguard ancient knowledge and rites through a vast oral tradition. These druids meet within sacred circles of trees or standing stones to whisper primal secrets in druidic. The circle's wisest members preside as the chief priest of communities that hold the old faith and serve as advisors to the rulers of these folk. As a member of this circle, your magic is influenced by the land. As a member of this circle, your magic is influenced by the land where you are initiated into the circle's mysterious rites. So I immediately, one of the big things for trait was the mental image of the swamp and the
bugs and the nasty.
Bugs and the nasty and like the forest. So I didn't actually go with swamp, which is unfortunate because I just didn't like the options there. So I did go with forest as the choice because with land, like you said, you choose Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, underdark. So and you get spells that are associated with those. So spells that are kind of tied to those environments. So I made trait as a level 3 druid so that I could get the subclass, and then that could come along with bark skin and spider climb, which I felt also would work into the character of her. Bark skin, it kind of fits into like the hypochondriac part of I need to protect myself, I need to cover my skin so that like if something touches me, it's not making contact with me, it's making contact with my magical barrier I've created over myself. And then the spider climb, the spider climb then also makes sense of just her saying like I need to get a way out of here. And there's also something like inherently like terrifying, I guess, of like this long-haired snake woman with like this black oily hair and she's hanging from the ceiling. Like that's super terrifying.
I have such a cool image in my head now that you've said bark skin of quite literally like the way that a snake would shed their skin. They grow this extra layer as a spell, and then it just kind of flakes off of her, just kind of sloughs off of her after the fighting is done, or whenever the spell ends, like another layer of skin, and then underneath it she gets to be clean and pristine and brand new skin.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah. Like I love kind of giving a thematic ophidian layer, to the spells.
That actually leads right into the next question that I had for you. When you're making trait, when you were putting all this together, was it like, did you have like a theme in mind? Is it more of like picturesque to you, or did you start with like a mechanical background in mind and then kind of work your way out from an ability that you liked?
No, it was definitely the opposite. It was finding that theme for the character and then working a way to. I think what it was for me is like so. I went with Circle of the Land because I was going for what made sense for the character, what made sense for the environment for the character, and so then along with that it comes with a bonus cantrip, and you get Natural Recovery, which you like commune with nature, and when you take a short rest, you get you get expended spell slots back. So like there's all this thing that's, or these we were saying it earlier, things that come along with being a Yuan-ti, that like the innate magic resistance, the serpentine spellcasting, which gives you poison spray and animal friendship and suggestion. All of these things, like it's just giving you spells to play with, or ways to refresh your spells, to have more cantrip slots, to be able to have more options for spells. It just made sense for me then to turn her into like the like the innate healer for the party. So I took things like cure wounds and healing word, like the normal things that you would expect, but also things like wither and bloom and pass without trace, and fairy fire and detect magic, because those things that I feel like, her being this innate magic person, she would be able to use her magic to benefit the party in whatever way she can. And then the more spell slots and the more ways for her to refresh those spell slots, the more chances she's got to cast those things and to be more effective in doing so.
I like it. I really do.
It's the one part of her that I think has any kind of traditional sort of basis, I guess, in the sense that I think just one of the built-in archetypes for druid is to be that healer.
That actually, I think really your explanation does kind of tie right into the very, very next question that I kind of had lined up for you again, was what kind of interactions would you imagine Trait getting into, either with the PCs or the NPCs of the game? What kind of an interaction do you see her end up having, maybe with the party, or maybe with just some random shopkeep in a town?
So I've given her, stat-wise, I've allocated them 10 strength, 10 dex, 10 con, 16 intelligence, 20 wisdom, and 7 charisma. So she's going to be so painfully shy. So I don't see her having a lot of interaction with people if she can manage it. But I do see her, providing that role of the healer and the caretaker. I could also maybe see it being one of those, if she's not in the party, perhaps this character that is an NPC that the party interacts with, that's okay, I can't take you out into this jungle so that you can get this ingredient that you need to make this potion so that you can bring the other party member who just got killed back to life. However, I know this gal, her name is Trait, and she really knows this area. She's not that well with people, but she can take you out. And then they spend 2 or 3 sessions with this weirdo out in the middle of nowhere digging under rocks and trying to find things. So I could see that, that kind of being this eccentric sort of freaky snake gal that the party has to interact with for a little bit.
I like the idea as well that maybe the party had some sort of middleman that would connect them to Trait, because Trait wouldn't ever really go out of her way to interact with someone, but she's not opposed to doing it. It's just kind of adverse to her, and so there is kind of a middleman that maybe would bring PCs out to the guide, and the guide would be Trait.
And the guide is one of those that they kind of live on the fringes of society themselves, where they are one step closer to civilization than Trait is, and so that's why they kind of get along, is because they kind of also don't really like people.
Like a real Aragorn kind of vibe.
Yeah. He's that's so interesting too, because he's I don't really get along with other people, but the people that I do get along with, I really get along with. Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
How about for you? Let's flip it around and turn the spotlight. What's the subclass that you've got picked for Septra of Maru?
Oh my goodness. So Septra is going to be a Circle of the Shepherd subclass. I really, really, really wanted to lean into the animals. I really wanted to utilize what the Yuan Ti would give you. And the Circle of the Shepherd, it really focuses on your summons, it focuses on any other animal companions. It feels like it gives the power to the people around you, and you kind of utilize the things that you have around you to impose your will, as rather than the druid themselves being the ones to go out there and cast the spells. Or I
see. So then you see Septra as being a way more hands-off druid than Trait, for example.
Yeah, I can see Septra being a very distant kind of character. She is manipulative and manipulating, but she doesn't want to get her hands dirty. She doesn't want to get her hands onto things if she doesn't have to. She would much rather sit back, allow maybe some minor minions, or maybe, some snakes to do her bidding for her, rather than her having to get into the meat of things and fight on her own.
That makes sense. What better way to defend yourself as to not put yourself into danger? What was it that did you have anything in particular in mind as far as the I guess we were talking about the snake charmer and being the commander, the one that's in control. Was that kind of the mechanic, or was there any kind of mechanic number wise or anything in mind that came from that?
I did some digging, I did some looking, and I feel like I have built a Rube Goldberg machine that is just... honestly, I feel like it is just going to be completely miserable for a very early party to have to deal with, but that's kind of what you want out of your big bads.
Yeah, especially after, you've had several sessions of build-up. You want something, good and a hearty fight.
Yeah, I wanted to turn the natural race abilities of the Yuan-Ti just up to 11. And Yuan-Ti, they get the ability to speak with animals, but it's not anything special. It's not with any kind of animal. They can only speak to snakes. They're not birds, not dogs, not creatures of the night. No, just snakes. They can only talk to snakes.
So then you thought, how can I turn that into a good thing?
Right. Now, snakes, pretty mundane. They're tiny little fellas. But one of the first things that a Circle of Shepherd Druid gets is to interpret beast speech and to be able to kind of speak back with them through body language. And so my first thought on that is that Septra has probably really taken her time. She has gathered the normal snakes in the area, with her ability to talk with them and understand what they're also looking for. She has very slowly just curried favor with the itty-bitty snakes, the normal mundane snakes that live there in the temple, either through gifts of food, a druid's ability to summon water or manipulate water from the ground is a lifesaver in the desert. So she kind of has set herself up as a haven for the snakes. She is like a matron for them, and so they are like pets. And then we add another layer on top of that. The Circle of Shepherd Druids, they get totems. One of the totems that caught my eye in particular is the Totem of the Bear. The Totem of the Bear has a very unique and, in my mind, a pretty nasty ability. You get the option to pick any creature within 30 feet of the totem that you set down. That's not fair. Any or all creatures that you choose within the totem that you set down, and they gain temporary HP equal to 5 plus your druid level. And now that turns these very mundane, very, kind of just a nuisance snakes. They are, CR 1/8, 1/4. They got 1 HP. Well, it turns them into snakes that now have 8 HP, maybe 9 HP. And for a very early level party, that turns them from, easy AoE fodder into you have to dedicate attacks to each one of these little snakes. You have to dedicate dealing with the snakes to get past the snakes.
I see. The caster in the back just getting absolutely mauled.
Exactly. And then furthermore, on top of the HP, or the temporary HP that the totem gives, it also gives advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws.
Oh, and the caster absolutely mauled.
Yes. Septra is a villain that is down in a dungeon of her own choosing, and she is going to capitalize on the creatures that she has at her disposal. She is going to really utilize the temporary HP on these tiny snakes to make them a serious threat, and now she kind of has a meat wall. She has minions. She has little monsters that are good at grabbing and binding and biting and death through 1,000 cuts. They have to be dealt with. You almost have no choice but to deal with the snakes to get to Septra. Otherwise, you run the risk of the snakes tying you down, binding you down, and then she can cast kind of with impunity.
Yeah, that's a really interesting twist because, it's usually, do we focus on the lead thing or do we focus on the ads? Is it one less gun? Do we take that out or do we focus on the big gal? But, then all of a sudden it's not, oh, well, I'll just dedicate one turn to whap one of these out real quick. It's like, well, it might take me 2 hits, and I don't have access to my second strike yet, so this is going to take my whole turn. Is it worth it?
Exactly. It gives the snakes just enough of a bump, and the other abilities of being able to speak with them and like interact with them gives just enough, maybe like plausibility that this character would have had the time to really amass a horde of snakes, and that makes her dangerous.
Right, and not only her, this swarm that she's got with her, all of them are dangerous as well, and that's rough for a early game party like that has to decide how they conquer that. That's my plan. That's that's the danger I want to throw at a party. So then that's the interaction that you imagine having with Septra having with the party is you'll meet me at the not the base of the hill, but at the bottom of the depths, at the culmination of Act 1.
Oh, for sure. Like my take on Septra is that she is definitely an NPC and likely some sort of end of dungeon boss for like a very, very early party adventure. I'd set her maybe level 3, or depending on how long, kind of the Act 1 of a story draws out, like you can go above and beyond that, but I would set her at about maybe level 3 or like a CR 3, and put her right smack dab at the very bottom of like an ancient Egyptian themed dungeon crawl that is all about discovering lost idols and finding treasure to bring back.
Nice, very cool. It has like a very I can't help but picture like Diablo.
Ooh, yes. And the whole floor is snakes.
Yes, yeah. Oh. By the time you get down to the layers of the temple, and she'd have some kind of cool cutscene at the beginning where she'd talk some mad.
Oh, you know it.
Mad snaky stuff.
My attributes I broke down. I have strength as an 8. She's a dexterity of 10, constitution of 9, intelligence of 10, wisdom of 20, and then I put the 16 that we had into charisma to kind of further bump those animal handling rolls to gather her babies a little sooner.
That absolutely makes sense. That totally makes sense to me. Yeah, I could see her almost being like, maybe it doesn't just work on the snakes. Maybe she's also kind of this seductress of the desert who has taken some men under her control.
I see no reason why there wouldn't be some sort of maybe a more formalized guard that have ended up down there in the temples. And they are brought there. They are seduced by the call of Septra of Meru.
And then maybe she's got this a certain type of venom that doesn't kill, but it like controls the mind. And they've got these glowing green eyes that shows that they're under her spell.
Oh, you are speaking my language. That is awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I could see, the moment too where it's like the beginning of the episode stinger, before the intro credits, where it's the guy wandering around in the desert and he's like, oh, I'm thirsty, I need help, and he comes on this ruin and he goes inside, and all of a sudden he hears something, he turns around, there's this beautiful woman, and he's like, oh my god, not only am I getting help, but it's from this beautiful woman. And then at the last second she like moves out of the shadows and you see that there's snake body underneath.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that rules. I love Septra. I think this is a really cool character. I think this is one that I just imagine being in the party and you keep seeing snakes, you keep fighting snakes, and then finally you get to this as the culmination of everything. I think this would be such a unique fight and such a just like a pleasure of a character to interact with.
And really, just kind of to pop the cherry on top, it's all player rules legal. This is absolutely a PC that you could make. The only real issue is just the tedium of gathering your own snakes. Anyone could be a character exactly like Septra. The only real difficulty that comes in that is you gotta gather up the snakes. You gotta keep gathering your snakes, because the only thing that holds them on is their loyalty to food. And so I do imagine after some very heavy tactics, it probably wouldn't be all that difficult to really scare the snakes off. If they run the risk of actually dying, there's no magical binds that hold them to her. It's just that they view her as like a matronly, like a motherly figure.
That's an interesting concept. So like if you wanted to actually play this as a character, it would require you to play a long-term game to be able to like build up this army, and then you have to figure out the logistics of that, like how do you transport an army of snakes? Do you transport them? You just have this like Pied Piper situation where Septra just walks around and following her is a river of snakes?
Oh yeah, like admittedly, like if I were to DM this and I had a player that came up to me and said, "Hi, I would like to be a snake mama that controlled 1 million snakes. This is my level 3 character. How many 1 million snakes do I get to start out with?" I would probably be pretty inclined to tell them, "You have very few snakes." But as an NPC, you can get around that. You have time to build. You have the theme. You have the setting around you that you can kind of use to your own favor.
Yeah. How long has Septra been down in these dank ruins, just fostering snake relationships and making them have babies, and then those babies are servient to her as well.
Oh man, I'm coming into the game kind of late with this idea, but I could almost even see that like Septra of Meru might just be a title for a running string of priestesses that guard that temple.
Oh, see, they are the Meru.
This idea, this character concept, she might just be the current priestess down there in that temple, and the one to take her place will also be the next Septra. And so this has been going on for ages. People have heard of Septra.
Oh, I see. Then she's almost built up this legend that surrounds the character and the figure, and almost like it's this character that's she is immortal. She never dies. They don't realize that she's just being cycled.
I love it.
Yeah, that whips, dude. That's cool.
I love it.
I love that too. That's the bed of snakes is endless because it's been harvested for generations. Yeah. Oh, that is sick and sickening. Very cool. I think we've got, we kind of put ourselves into a weird spot. We kind of challenged ourselves a little bit, but I think it really paid off. I think with Trait and with Septra of Meru,
I see.
We ended up with some really unique characters, and I think it ended up for a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I really, really liked the direction that you took Trait on being the healer, because I don't know if you meant to or not, but that coincides, perfectly with the symbol that you see outside of hospitals often, or like in ancient Greek and Roman. Yeah, they have the Serpent of Delphi out there, like usually on the staff, and so like snakes being associated with healing has been heard of before.
That's really cool. Yeah, that was totally no, didn't even think about it.
Maybe some weird latent subconscious thought.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Wow, what a good thing to point out, man. That's really cool. And with that, I think we've reached a good stopping point. We had a really good, nice conversation today. I think we had a really good opportunity to like challenge ourselves and get ourselves out of our comfort zones with some Yuan-Ti druids, and then that led us into like some really neat directions.
I agree. I think they're just some really fun ideas. Like this is something I really might take one of these characters and find a game to hop myself into online or something like that. And I really might carry one of these characters into my next game.
Ooh, I think that would be a really fun opportunity to just say like, hey, I got this really like neat idea. Check out this wacky idea I had, and also check out my podcast. So thank you for joining us. This has been Roll Your Stats. If you come and hang out with us again next time, we'll be making that's a 20, an ASMR 9 cleric, that is 18 and 20 calm and hypochondriac, so we'll keep that. 18 is organized, so we'll keep that organized. We'll drew that hypochondriac again for an 11, and apathetic and organized. Join us next time on Roll Your Stats.
Goodbye.
Bye. And with that, I believe we've had enough fun for this time. We'll be back with you soon. We'll be back with a new character, and this is shit. Let me do it again.